Hi, it's Amanda. Welcome to my channel. I may or may not end up taking this video down, and it's definitely not my usual content, but I haven't been posting regularly or been all that active on social media for several months now. And before I get back to a more dependable schedule, which I'm really working on, I thought it important to further explain my absence. Going for the Spark Notes version here, so we'll try to keep this relatively brief. For probably the first time in my life, I've been incredibly introspective and pondering lately. And for your reference, I have been passively planning this video for what's probably 8 or 9 weeks at this point. I feel like I must be suffering what I'd call like an identity crisis lately, which sounds sort of trendy if nothing else, so let's just go with it. The pandemic, unsurprisingly, like for most, has really influenced so many aspects of my life. Even if I would have done or felt these things regardless, doing them in this context gives it a different spin, or way too spicy a spice. I'm no longer working for the first time in my adult life, and I've posted a video about that. Aiden, my oldest child, started kindergarten this fall, having been locked in with us for 1.5 years. Layla turned 2, having been, again, locked in with us since she was 6 months old. Family illness is a constant, and both typical and non-typical family drama is also taking its toll. And I don't mean Nick and my kids. Things with them are pretty normal. All of these things have had very personal and adverse side effects for me. And what's more therapeutic than talking things out to a recording device and ultimately to what has always been a very supportive audience? Possibly pills would be more helpful, but let's just start here. I'm hoping this honest account also might help someone else who's struggling. We all know we aren't alone in our feelings, but misery loves company, and that's not always such an ill-hearted thing. Before I get started, I know the hair content and Saturday videos specifically have become infrequent or more honestly non-existent, but this video should further explain why. I'm just not in the right place mentally right now. I do hope to get back to a regular and predictable schedule, and maybe this video is a good first step. For some background, I've always been somewhat of a loner. And when I say someone, I mean I've always been like a real big loner. Always had at least a couple of friends though, and mixed with random small talk being out in the world pre-2020, my sisters and my mother, my husband, of course. I know I didn't mention my father. I do still have him, and while close, we're not really chatting pals. My sisters are 4 and 8 years older than me, and my mother tells me that when I was young, I used to ask if sisters could come with me on play dates. I don't remember this, but it paints the picture. I always just needed my family. That being said, there have been times in my life I wanted more friends, but I was always so busy that it never really weighed on me past a simple, fleeting thought. Plus, I had who I had, and it filled my day. When I was really young, my mother kept me busy. I played competitive chess from kindergarten to 7th grade, which actually takes a lot of time. Tennis, softball, harp, piano, and of course there was schoolwork. I never really made and hung on to friends, even through college, but I have been in 2 serious relationships, both leading to engagement, one to marriage, and I never seemed to need more than one person at a time. I do want to mention, though, I do have one friend that I've had since I was in 2nd grade, and I think we will always be friends, but he's a very gregarious person, has a ton of friends, and we don't talk all that often. We talk probably a few times a year. If that, he'll always be my friend, but he's not someone that I talk to, as I mentioned, on a regular basis. Skipping a lot here, but this isn't a detailed autobiography. This was just a bit of background to support my whole being a loner statement. Fast forward to my here and now, my adult years, pandemic, quitting my job, and a whole confluence of events. And for the first time, I'm really feeling what I can comfortably call the pain of solitude. More on the work thing for a minute. While I didn't really have work friends that I spoke to outside of work or ever saw in person, it was people that I saw and talked to on a regular basis. I also had my friends on the train commute, and I was even seeing some of them outside of the train, and I thought we were developing regular friendships, like the kinds where you keep in touch and talk to each other. Then the pandemic hit. I have a sister with multiple chronic illnesses, which I've mentioned many times. She's been on my channel. Parents in their 70s, one of them with comorbidities, and in an essential role, he's a physician. And young kids, just a high-risk, stressful, terrifying situation. It wasn't until a year later when I realized that literally no one had reached out to me in that long to see how we were doing. I've been occupied from dawn to, pretty much dawn, between my job, building my channel and website. I was really consistent back then. Instagram took over my entire life. 2 kids, cooking, cleaning, household stuff. Every second was accounted for. Now, since leaving my job, it has been almost painfully evident that I literally have no one outside of my family. Again, I know I mentioned I have one friend, but I mean just like on a day-to-day basis. And in addition to that, I'm not going to go into this further at all, but my oldest sister and I don't really talk anymore. Vax versus anti-vax breaks up yet another family. Just wanted to say before I move on though, I understand friendship is a two-way street, and in all that time, the year and a half, I didn't reach out to anyone in particular either. But it was just this lack of communication one way or another that really solidified how alone I really was, and that I really just wasn't important enough to anyone. Christina, my middle sister, the one who's ill, has always had like a million friends, and they were always around when we were growing up. She had been sick since age 10, so things were always at our house because her health and mobility were always a coin flip. As much as I was a miserable loner child, and arguably now a miserable loner adult, I appreciated the company and never really felt the need for my own social life. Nowadays, 2020, 2021, I see people when she has people over, which isn't all that often. It's been a handful of times in the last couple of years. And given my other sister is no longer in our quarantine group, we no longer see them on the weekends. And there goes Aiden's one unmasked play date. And it's been a struggle to set up regular plays for him outside of that. And not for a lack of trying, trust me. Making friends in 2021 is a struggle, on top of the usual struggle, which is already a struggle in itself. In addition to trying to suss out whether people share the same values as you, interests, or what have you, there are so many more other things you have to learn about a person before even considering friendship, or very often just a conversation. Vaccination status, masking patterns. Do they mask indoors? Are they under the false impression that you don't need to mask indoors once you're vaccinated? Do they care at all about public safety or about anyone other than themselves and their immediate loved ones? Which person were they in 2020 and 2021? In addition to Christina always having friends, my parents always had a lot of friends. Something I didn't appreciate when I was younger, but between my family members and their people, there were always just a lot of people around. Aiden is now in kindergarten, and with this pandemic making things obviously 1,000 times harder given our strictness and outside interaction, Aiden hasn't really had a friend to play with in almost 2 years, nor has he seen anyone at home because we don't have people over. We ran into his best friend of probably 2.5 years. No, he was only 3.5 years old when we took him out of school, and he didn't even recognize him, and that was just really sad. He gets so excited when Christina has people over, and it's really just sad for me to see because I feel like I'm failing him. I don't have anyone to have over. And when I say people, I mean people that know us, love us, and care about us, and would be safe, and people that we would feel comfortable having over, like masked and, responsibly and all that, but just like, anyone. This all being said, I have made attempts over the last few years, have clicked with a lot of people, but for some really curious reason to me, I'm always ever the one reaching out. And at some point, dignity kicked in, and I decided I was done chasing people. I'm a darn pleasure to be around. And Aiden is an absolute peach as children his age go. We should be in high demand. Really. When I left my job, I had big plans for my YouTube channel and planned to work on that during work hours. However, a combination of general sadness, feeling sick, or just slightly off every day from pregnancy for more than a few months, being overwhelmed with household and other chores that had so far been left unattended, some for like 6-7 years while I was working, and just anything else that plays into this mix, I have been instead taking a break for the most part from my until now incredibly consistent, as I mentioned, and dependable content. Anything related to the pregnancy and like my not feeling well, that's all actually completely gone away. I feel absolutely fine now, like my first pregnancy, so that's great. But anyway, this leads me to what feels like my biggest stressor right now, this identity crisis I mentioned. When I was working, I was of the same lonely status, I guess, but during my day I was distracted with my job and could argue I didn't have any friends because I didn't have time. My identity was tied up as a typical busy working mom, and now I'm just a busy mother whose life revolves around my family. No longer earning an income, failing at every attempt to make friends, and now there's a somewhat creeping suspicion that my inability to build friendships often, not all the time, and not even most of the time, but often has to do with my race. This is a sensitive topic and something I never really felt until now. And it's something that's relatively hard to articulate. I never really experienced much like outward racism growing up, but there's something about the way people act when you can tell that's what it is. Even if they don't mean to, you know that there is some kind of hesitation because of your race. Sort of like a sixth sense. You might know what I'm talking about. Like a gaydar, but more like a radar. No, it doesn't work, this actual thing. Raystar, yeah. And honestly, I feel like it's gotten a lot worse since going natural. Who'd have thought? Well, I guess a lot of people, including me. So that's a whole other conversation that I've probably had on my channel already. My job right now is to raise well-socialized, well-educated, well-rounded children. And I feel like I'm failing at the whole well-socialized part. And it is really getting me down. Plus, quitting my job, news of having a third child are both such exciting pieces of news for me. And I had literally no one to share this with outside of my family. And that's actually kind of when it hit me back in August. I don't know where this video is going or how to end it. So if you'd like a part 2, let me know and I can maybe dive into just one of the issues because there's so much to say. But because I was mentioning so many things, I didn't want to really go into anything in particular. It has partially taken me so long to get this video out because I have like 28 years to unpack and I didn't know how to really explain my feelings. I'm not sure if I did a proper job of that even in this video. My real intention was to explain why I've been so inconsistent and generally absent. And I felt like I really couldn't just disappear and then suddenly come back and not say anything, and I wasn't gonna cover it in like a 30-second clip in the beginning of one of my videos. So I'm explaining why, and now I feel like I have opened the door to start pushing out more content while not committing to anything regular at this time. But once I start to get more videos out, I feel like it might be easier to slowly get back to putting out a regular schedule. Now that I've explained a bit, I do want to say that I am definitely doing things to try to help myself. I recently started weekly online therapy. I joined a tennis clinic for some fun exercise, maybe meet people, maybe not, I don't know. I've continued to try to find people that have the same interests as me. It's a little bit difficult. I tried the local mommy groups, by the way, but I'm finding way too many people are way too obsessed with having been able to reproduce and they want to talk about their kids way too much. Plus, I hate when other people call me mom or mommy, and that is rampant in all the mommy groups. I didn't give birth to you or adopt you, so just use my name. But anyway, let's see what all these little adjustments do. And I'm glad to have finally put out this video, which again, I may or may not end up taking down or at least making private. But for now, here it is. And, can any of you relate? Or maybe if you have some advice. I mean, I've probably considered, I've probably heard it before, but I'd love to hear what you have to say because I am open to any ideas here. Back to the whole relating thing. Even if you don't have anything very specific to what I am going through, anything on your mind that you might think useful to express, I'd love to hear about it in the comment section. And also, as I mentioned, let me know if you want any details about anything specifically that I've mentioned. And if it's not off limits for personal reasons, I'd be happy to put out a follow-up video. And I promise to at some point come back with this regular Saturday hair content. I know I've said it like 19 times in this video. But you can still find consistent videos every Tuesday for hair product reviews, so definitely come back for those. So anyway, thank you for watching. I feel weird saying I hope you enjoyed this video because I have mixed feelings about your enjoying my sadness. But anyway, if you like my content in general and haven't done so already, please consider subscribing. Like, comment, and share, and I will talk to you in my next one. Thanks, and have a good one.